let this one get by it. Bestseller.
The subject is a podcaster.
I removed the liabilities, and I provided some of the assets.
Do not move! The author is
Alan Lee.
Hey, stay back! It's a police emergency!
I like you.
UML.
Police!
Not enough to sacrifice the book for.
they need each other more than they can trust each other.
Podcaster. Author.
Two sides of the same coin. Read all about it in my book.
You asked interrogative questions around my face. It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Alan?
Hey kids, it's your old pal, ML Elric, back with my old pal, Alan Lee. Now, you know Alan because he was the guy you woke up with every morning at Fox 2, which means he either had a really big bed or a very permissive wife. But now, he's an author and has been out to L.A. pitching his thriller. He's back with us in Detroit, and he's going to join us to talk about not only Sandstorm, which was the book that took him off TV and put him on track to being a spy master, but his latest book, Ashes to Ashes, which is available now. Here's a little tease from Ashes to Ashes, and please forgive me my read on this, Alan. I'm not a broadcast professional.
Sure you are.
I'm just a failed newspaper man who's finding new things to fail at every week here. They call him. And where's Shawn to make fun of this? He should be here. They call him the Devil. Dead set on settling an old score with a sworn enemy, Alex Coves is AWOL and on the hunt. As a once rising CIA star, he's forced to take matters into his own hands to protect both himself and his lover, Nora Mosa. But to do so, he'll need to place his trust in an elusive Russian woman who could sell him out at any moment. Now, who hasn't been there before, Al? That's sort of, I kind of feel like you should have signed away my life rights on this one because this feels very, very much like things we used to talk about in the cafeteria at Fox 2 when I was messing with those Russian women. And
Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah. We used to talk about you. It was like, boy, that ML's a player, isn't he?
Yeah, the rock hard abs, the Krav Maga skills, So between Archer and your books, I feel like my life has been stolen from me.
Archer.
Do you feel any guilt over this?
No, not at all. Not at all. You know,
Okay.
we knew you were a stud when you were there.
Don't feed it.
Most people were afraid to approach you and even talk to you.
That may have been because of the halitosis. But I've got it under control. Although Mark does try and have a couple monitors between me and him here in the studio.
Exactly, yeah. Anywhere I can hide.
Yeah, anywhere you can hide. Well, before we get to Alan, I want to tell you who brought us here today. First of all, you, our Patreon subscribers. We really appreciate it because sponsors are hard to come by. If you can donate as little as $5 a month, not only do you get the show before anybody else, but you get to watch the show. Alan Lee will be back on your TV or at least on your monitor. If you can donate, become one of our soulmates, and we'll have a link on our website that helps you do that. We're also brought to you by Dr. Yaldo, who will help you get better than perfect vision. By Luke Nowacki, who will help you build a near-perfect retirement if you take his advice and you make a plan and you're patient. And, of course, the Caju Cafe, where there's lots of great stuff going on. They're taking Thanksgiving off because they're going to be with their family in the same way we hope that you will spend some time with your family. But there's lots of great stuff when, biggest bar night of the year, okay? You want to come and you want to sing karaoke at the Caju. And then, of course, there's a full weekend of great things for your friends who've come in, including on Friday night, Natives of the New Dawn. This band, I have a connection to this one. The drummer is my brother-in-law's brother. They are a great local band that gets together for the holidays and plays gigs around Detroit, sometimes St. Andrews, sometimes the Caju. So catch up with the Natives of the New Dawn this weekend at the Caju Cafe. We'll tell you when they're going to be there, how you can take advantage of some of the other services our sponsors offer, and how you can become a member of the Soulmates a little later on in the show. So Alan, ball player, newsman,
Yeah.
anchorman, author. That's a pretty cool resume.
It's a good life.
Yeah.
I can't complain. First job out of college was in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. That's not bad.
They don't call them the Virgin Islands now that you left.
Oh, please.
That's
Come
what
on.
I'm told. You're
Come
the
on.
Alex Coves of the Virgin Islands.
I don't know about all of that. No, it was a fun time, though. It was carefree and had a great time and went to the beach every day.
The whole thing's a beach, right? I mean, how do you know?
Yeah, you're on the island. So it's funny because you have the Atlantic on one side and the Caribbean on the other side, the sea, the ocean. And they're two totally different oceans. The Atlantic side is really rough, and the Caribbean side is really calm.
Okay.
But here's the one thing that they could never convince me of. I always used to say, okay, because it's salt water. I'd be like, and then people would swim all the time. I'd be like, okay, when's the last time you guys had a shark attack? And they go, we don't have shark attacks. I'm like, no, come on, that's impossible. And they go, no, and I think there's the theory of that. I think is because it is the Atlantic and the Caribbean, how they merge. For some reason, sharks don't like it that much, and I think it has to do with the Atlantic water is a little cooler,
Okay.
and the Caribbean is warmer, and the mixture of them coming together somehow creates this thing where they don't like it that much.
Well, it wasn't Jaws in the Atlantic, so maybe it's the Caribbean that's saving you from getting gnawed on.
It was pretty cool, and I always wondered because I hate snakes. And I figured, and they go, oh, yeah, we used to have snakes on here. But he goes, and somebody brought in this thing called the mongoose, which I had never heard about. And they go, mongoose took care of all the snakes on the island.
It wasn't the sharks.
No, it was the mongoose. And they go, there's this vicious
No land sharks?
No, there's this vicious little thing called the mongoose. And they go, just totally took all of the snake population.
Well, then the big question is, what could drive you off that island? I mean, if you have a job at
it's one of those things.
How do you leave?
I was young enough at a point in time where I was at an age to say, if I don't leave now and pursue my dreams or what I really want to do, I'm never going to leave. Because you kind of get hypnotized by everything. Everything is so perfect.
Yeah.
Weather's perfect. Every day your job is the same thing. They gave me a company car.
Damn, I was just going to say probably the pay wasn't perfect, but they give you a company car. That doesn't sound bad.
Exactly. So, but it was to the point where like I got to get out of here now because otherwise, your bosses were like never saying you did anything wrong at work.
Yeah.
It was just an unrealistic situation for a while, and that's just I gotta get out of here.
Are they hiring, by the way? Sounds like a pretty good gig.
Well, now that you're an author, you could do that anywhere.
Back.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing is that my lead character, Alex Coves, lives in St. Thomas.
Okay.
So that was my sort of connection to keep him there and me go back.
So St. Thomas to what's the next stop?
St. Thomas back home to Chicago.
Okay.
Where I worked at WMAQ.
Oh, yeah.
On the assignment desk.
Channel 5, right?
Yeah, which was with some of the, because I always wanted to say it to my point, because I had done TV.
Carol Marine and all these other big shots.
I had done TV in the Virgin Islands and radio at the same time. I was a DJ on Saturday nights.
Yeah, I don't know why you left, but go ahead.
And so I said, if I really want to stay on TV, again, I want to go to a big station to see how it really works at a big station. And I was fortunate enough to get a job at WMAQ on the assignment desk. And I got to watch, heck, like you said, there was Carol Marin. There was Ron Majors.
Oh, that's right.
Who was one of the best anchors I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Carol was just one of the toughest women you ever want to see. Nobody messed with Carol. I mean, back in Chicago, we used to have a lot of police officers would work part-time as sort of security to take talent. I hate that word talent, by the way.
I do, too.
But they would
and
take,
I proved what an inapt term it is.
Yeah, people don't go, oh, you're talent. I go, don't call me that. Yeah. But they would take them to assignments or different places, neighborhoods. I remember one time Carol was doing this gang series, and she had to go to a really rough neighborhood in Chicago, and we couldn't find a police officer to escort her on. And Carol goes, F it. I'm not waiting around. I'll just drive myself. We're all like, Carol, you can't. She was like, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
In the newsroom, that's
just an afternoon at the Robert Taylor Homes. No big deal.
And in the afternoon, in the newsroom, that's kind of like everybody's kind of like, whoa, much respect.
Yeah.
Deborah Norville was working there.
Okay.
Mark Giangreco, who does sports, I don't know you know who that is.
Sure. Yeah.
But, Mark was the first $1 million local sports anchor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He worked it, and Mark's second in command. It's so funny because what's the guy who used to do sports here at Channel 7? passed away, unfortunately.
Not McLeod. Shane. Don
Yes,
Shane.
Don Shane was his second in command, so I had known Don there. So, you know how life full circle. When I come back to Detroit, I see Don, and Don like, wait a minute, aren't you? And I go, yes, So it's funny. But so I worked at WMAQ, and from there, spent about a year there, and then I got a job offer from Evansville, Indiana. And to do
Okay.
the whole thing was that would
be on the air then,
that would be
right?
back
Yeah.
on the air, and they knew I did sports at the time, and they're like, okay, we don't have a sports opening, but the guy whose job we want you to take, his contract is coming up. We're going to get you at the door anyway. So you can only imagine how that first initial.
Did he know that?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
he kind of
okay.
knew why.
Yeah.
I was. So that was, and his buddy who was the head sports guy also knew that I was there, and so that was a little bit of
Yeah, a little
walking
uncomfortable.
on eggshells
Yeah.
for a while. But you just endear yourself to everybody else and the rest of the cast because it's kind of like it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then, no fault of mine. I'm not really here to take your job. That decision's already been made.
That happened to me at Channel 4, and I think they thought I was there to take Kevin Dietz's job. 10 or 15 years later, Kevin Dietz still had his job,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
Not
So it is what it was. And so from there I went to Washington, D.C., spent a number of years in Evansville, was totally happy and great job. And then I got
covering the Evansville Triplets, probably, the Tigers' old farm team.
yeah, that's why I did get to meet a bunch of people that I later also met here. Yeah, they had the University of Evansville, great program. Soccer team was ranked number 1 in the country numerous years.
Okay.
We used to always go back to Purdue. Basketball was up the road.
Sure.
Indiana was down the road.
You're a Boilermaker, so.
Yeah, and Bob Knight and I were good friends in college.
What?
That's a crazy story to tell you.
You're way younger than Bob Knight.
Way younger than Bob Knight. I was still a student, and I worked at our student newspaper doing sports, and I got to know Coach Knight then. Here's a classic Coach Knight story. This is how I first got to know Coach Knight, and I actually like Coach Knight. I could see underneath the rough exterior from what he portrayed to be, which, don't get me wrong, he could be rough on people.
That's it's a pretty convincing portrayal.
Purdue played one basketball game and they beat them, and we were redoing the media room. So they stuck about 20, 30 press people in this small room and had to squeeze Coach Knight in there. So most of the guys were even on the floor. And these are veteran newspaper people from Chicago Tribune, their TV in there. And Coach Knight comes in. He's not going to be happy because he lost, first of all. And Coach Knight goes into his immediate, on the offense, any questions? And he looks, and everybody else is and I'm looking, here I am, I think I'm a junior in college at this point in time. And all these veteran people that I know from newspaper and TV are just lips are sealed, not daring to tread that water. And because the room is so small, by the time I got in there's only one place for me to be, standing right next to Bob Knight. And so Coach Knight looks around, satisfied that he's bullied the room and that nobody's going to ask him anything. And much like in A Few Good Men, where he's getting ready to get up, and Haffey goes, well, hold on. So I said, Coach Knight, I actually do have a question. He threw me this look like, who the heck are you? And it didn't intimidate me. So I said, and the way that I understand Coach Knight, I asked him a real basketball question. I said, Coach Knight, basically, in the second half, with about 4 minutes and something to go, this happened and that kind of affected this and that. And Coach Knight looked at me basically I could tell you actually kind of know basketball. And
X's and O's.
And you watch the game. You're not going to ask me one of these silly questions. And he answered the question. And from that point on, every time I saw him at a post-game conference, and I would ask him what he would consider to be an okay question, we got to know each other through the years. And he kind of would always, I could call India, because we had a couple of kids from Evansville, Calbert Cheney.
Oh, God, great player.
Yeah, who went to Indiana. And I would have to call Indiana, back in the day. We want to come up and interview Calbert, and Coach Knight would be I could hear him in the background. Who is it? He goes, yeah, he can do it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Bring him up here. So we always had a good relationship.
That's great. Well, Shawn Windsor asked Tom Izzo a question like that one time. And Izzo said, "Sounds like we got somebody who coached high school basketball." So he just put it right back on, which I thought was great. But Shawn Wins is no Alan Lee, so
Stop it.
It goes without saying.
Stop it.
Well, he's here. That's why.
So you do Chicago, and we mentioned Carol Marine, and I just have to tell you briefly about this woman because I think in Chicago she's a legend.
Yes.
She was part of one of the greatest investigative reporting projects ever. There was a collaboration, I think, with her, the TV station, and a newspaper where they set up a bar. And I don't know if it's called the Mercury Bar or whatever it was, but they knew that Chicago building inspectors were taking payoffs. So they actually created a bar. And they had all these inspectors come in and they just ran video and they caught all these guys who were hitting them up and saying, well, if you need that permit, it's going to cost you this much. And they blew the whole system apart. Happily for people in Chicago City Hall, it's just as corrupt now as it was back then. But this is one of the legendary investigative reporting projects of all time. So when you're working with somebody like that, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And then you come to Detroit.
Yeah. Well, I came to D.C. first, and then I came to Detroit. Yeah. In fact, I turned the job down at first when they offered it to me in Detroit.
And this was for Fox 2 Mornings, right? Is that where you started?
It was CBS at the time.
Okay.
Before they made the conversion.
Okay.
They had first offered me the weekends, which I wasn't interested in doing. And then something happened to one of the people during the weekday, and I kind of called back and go, well, if you guys are still interested, I'll do that. And they go, oh, yeah, of course. Well, we want you really bad. So and then I said, okay, great, I'll come. And my first anchor was Sherry Margolis.
Of course, the legend.
Legend, sweetheart. I think I had all the time that I was here, I think I had like 7 different co-anchors.
No woman could handle all that.
Stop.
Alan Lee.
But the interesting thing was, it only
Virgin
took us,
Island vibe.
Yeah, it only took us 2 years to go from number 3 to being number 1, and we were number 1 for like 16 straight years.
That show was a juggernaut, man.
Yeah, we had ratings that were crazy. So
and it redefined morning television. I mean, I think here in Detroit, you guys kind of set the pace for other Fox stations.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I still don't think anybody can touch Fox 2 in the morning. And
we were the
although
first.
I did have my one brief morning fill and it didn't go really.
Oh, wait, I don't know about that. What happened?
I think you know about that. I've talked about that before. They asked me to fill in on during the holidays.
Yeah, it's like everybody gets thin.
Yeah, well, believe me, they were really scraping the bottom of the barrel. And I went in there, and it was me and Lee Thomas and Ryan Ermani. And we were joking around about mistletoe, and I think Lee said something like, is this a real thing, or is this like sort of a scam for guys to try and get over on women? And I said, I'm not too worried about the mistletoe, but I am worried. Just watch out for the guys with the mistletoe belt.
That's not bad. Did you get in trouble for that?
No. Well, what happened is the next day I came in and they said, hey, no more mistletoe belts. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, we have a big audience. We have a lot of kids watching. I'm like, it's a school holiday. It's 6 a.m. You wish you had a lot of kids.
I'm surprised they were watching.
Yeah.
Bosses, yeah.
Well, apparently somebody was watching because it made it around the building. So they said, we can't have any more of that. And I said, I'll try not to, but I don't know. I go on, I do what I do, and I did my second day because there was no choice, and they never asked me again.
Alan, did you ever have?
But that's still good advice. Watch out for the guys with the mistletoe belt. That's news you can use.
Did you ever have an issue like that? You said something that you were like, oh.
The interesting thing is when I first came over there, they did kind of give me a lot of, even when I first started, the news director gave me a lot of autonomy because I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he goes, do whatever you think is right to make the show better.
Oh, that's cool.
And I said, well, so what are you telling me? He goes, whatever you think needs to be done, you help incorporate it.
Did that scare you, or were you like, this is freedom?
Exactly. Well, probably a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. Because now, which any producer would tell you, they hate someone on air coming to tell them how to change things. You know,
sure.
Especially if they don't know you. There's no track record with you out there. And that creates a little bit of a tension. And we used to have these shows in the morning. And my understanding was, because I had come from Washington, D.C. doing morning TV, and I think I kind of understand morning audiences very well. And we were running packages sometimes in the morning that were like 4 or 5 minutes long. And I would say, look, we got to stop that. I mean, you got to imagine sitting at home. Dude, I'm going in and out of the shower. I'm getting breakfast. I'm making coffee. I don't have time to sit down and watch something for 5 minutes.
Right.
Invest myself. That's putting me behind. unless it's really interesting. I can't keep doing that. You're making me turn the channel. And so we got them to sort of change that around and do things like that. And then, but to your point.
And now everybody does like the 5 things you need to know, or this or that. I mean, it's all really quick.
To ML's point where somebody said, we got kids watching. We used to have scripts that I used to have to sometimes talk to the writers because they would be so descriptive. I'd be like, okay, you can't write in this morning script that someone got sodomized. I go, there are kids around the breakfast table or even rape. I go, you know what? Just say assault.
Yeah.
Adults in the room will kind of understand what you're alluding to here.
Right.
There's a way to sort of soften these things up and not make them so tough. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And the crazy thing was, because ML, we were the first Fox station to actually beat the Today Show and Good Morning America. And then subsequently that, we had like 5 other stations in the O&O group, which is owned and operated by the network. They brought us all to New York for this meeting, and it was like workshops and everything. And the craziest thing happened at this meeting, shocked all of us. They said, okay, all of you anchors who do the morning show, here's your marching orders from now on, from what you guys, because we recognize that you guys are doing great. You have total autonomy over your morning show. And we were like, wow, well, what does that mean? He goes like, your producers, your executive producers, you get to override whatever decision they want to do. It's your responsibility now. And I tried not to really abuse that. And we had a great executive producer, Julie Jones. She's still there.
Still there, yep.
And, Julie would ask me sometimes my opinion, and I go, Julie, that's great, I would really try not to overrule. But there were certain things that, I think we should be covering this, or let's not do this. The toughest thing when you're the lead, when you're number 1 in the morning, sometimes we would worry so much in the newsroom about what the other stations were covering. And they go, well, shouldn't we be covering this?
Yeah.
I go, reverse this for a second. They're wondering what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah, you're in first.
We're number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're wondering what we're doing, what we're covering.
And back then, you had to jump on them, too, because, you know, GMA and the Today Show, by the time they came back at 9, you had already covered everything. It was different. It was great.
Yeah, it was that luxury of being local.
Yeah.
We get to stay on. They have to go to network.
Oh, yeah. No, and I think that morning show, when you started, how many hours was it when you started?
Oh, man. I think we started like at 6 in the morning.
Now they're on at, 4?
4, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they go all the way till noon now, I think. Isn't there
there's a
12:30 or 1
show.
Yeah. So
it's straight through.
Yeah.
Straight
no
through.
Judge Judy, none of the other junk. It's no Phil Donahue, God rest his soul.
Yeah. No.
Do you miss doing it? Or are you a news junkie? Do you still absorb all the news, or you're like, I don't want to hear about sodomy anymore or assaults?
The thing is,
you haven't been reading Alan's books. Lots of sodomy. Alex Coves, he's up for anything.
There is none of that in those books. I guarantee you that.
Hence the Cove.
Oh wow. My wife, when I first got back here, because watching TV in LA it is a totally different. There's more money, there's more resources, things of that. So I came back here and I started watching all the local channels, and I got a little critical. Even my old station, my wife finally, she was like, just stop.
Yeah, where she works, you got to be careful.
Yeah, she was just stop, shut up, keep that to yourself. I don't want to hear that anymore. So. I missed interviewing. I used to really had a lot of people that we interviewed a lot that would come into town. And interviews to me, I think I always had this ability to sort of get people to relax and be comfortable and get a lot out of them and have good sessions with them. So I missed that part of it more so. By the time, because like I said, I used to anchor from 5 to 9. And you know how that is. You repeat the same stories kind of like over and over.
Yeah.
By about the 3rd hour, I could probably just ad-lib it.
Yeah.
That same story. On the west side of Chicago, on the west side of Detroit, we had 2 people were shot, and I could tell you everything. I go, everybody go, that script I did, don't worry about it. Just give me the particulars. I can do it.
Did they catch anybody? No, okay, I got it.
Right. So that you kind of got a little bit repetitive. That's why I really enjoyed the interviews more, because it broke up the day. And we used to have just some amazing guests.
Yeah, start naming like who are some of the biggest people?
From college, because no one had known who this person was, and I started listening to his music, and I got everybody like, who is this dude? Al Jarreau.
Oh wow!
And came on, and we had the greatest segment for about 20 minutes. That's how long, and that's why I say Julie Jones was great in this, because usually you're like, okay, you got 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It was going so well. We were having so much fun. Julie gets to me. I go, Julie, can I have more time? Julie goes, this is great TV. Just take all the time.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Keep going. You two are just tearing it up.
Who told the guys in the green room, it's like, we're going to have you back tomorrow because Al's rolling?
No, but it was great. So, God, Jim Brown.
Jim Brown.
Gosh, we had Bill Russell. You name it.
You ever interview a president?
Jimmy Carter, yes.
Oh, okay.
Jimmy Carter. We had, who was the former? Henry Kissinger. Okay. We got Kissinger to do weather. Because he always liked it.
It's not bombing in Laos. I can tell you that. There are no bombs falling in Laos today, although it would be a good day to bomb them.
It is raining fire.
Yeah. The funny thing is, he was like, that was one of his little pet peeves. He really liked weather, so we got him to do it.
Because he wants to know when those secret missions can fly. He wants the sorties to take off.
Was he any good at it, or was he totally lost with the green screen?
Your impression is not bad, and it's just as fun as that. Just to see him do it.
Did he do the green screen? Was he able to point?
Yeah, he was great.
Wow.
He was great. He was great at it.
Watch out, Luderman. Who may have flown some of those sorties.
The
captain.
Yeah.
I don't want to get Alan in trouble.
We had Gregory Hines.
Okay.
I mean, you name it. We were getting ridiculous big stars after a while. And that's how we really started to know we were really making it, because we would get A-list people in town, and they're like, yeah, they want to come on the show. And I'm like, wow, really?
I've said for years the most powerful and influential media person in the city of Detroit is Al Johnson, who books the morning show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you can get Al's ear,
yeah, exactly.
He'll get you in front of a big audience.
Have you ever gone in Al's office?
Oh yeah,
it is like a
tchotchke
museum.
Heaven. Yeah.
If Al's office got on eBay, he could retire.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah.
He's got so many collectibles in there. It is amazing.
Every knickknack you could ever imagine being sent to promote something, and it's somehow he's still got wall space. I don't know how he does it. Does he have like a rotating display?
Well, he's probably got another room at home.
And storage units.
Yeah. It was fun. When I worked in D.C., Willard Scott was obviously, because we were in the same building as Network. So Willard Scott was also in the building. And the first time I'd ever met Willard, this is how cool Willard Scott was. I had to do this live shot outside of our station at WRC in D.C. And I see Willard out of the corner of my eye getting ready to come into work. And Willard takes a detour. He's not going into the door. He's coming towards me. We're still in a commercial break. And Willard goes, hey, babe, I just want to say, welcome. I love you. I've seen your work. Well, it just gives me this hug and this kiss. And he goes, come see me anytime. I'm up on the second floor. And I go, Willard Scott. That was Willard Scott.
Yeah.
But you talk about, you think Al Johnson's room?
Oh, I believe
something. Yeah. Willard had like a storage area in his offices that were
that was just
lockers.
for the toupees.
He had a bottle of champagne that was floor to ceiling. Yeah, it was real too. And I'm like, and you could tell Willard never took that stuff home or anything. It was just always in these lockers. And I'm like, Willard, dude. And he goes, I never touch that stuff. He goes, but they send me stuff all over the world. And
that's crazy.
I was like, well, can I?
Yeah, I want that bottle of champagne.
Yeah, crazy.
Christmas is coming up. Let me do a little shopping here. At Willard Mart.
Yeah, but it was great working at RC&D, because you work with all the network people that you saw all the time. You outside our studio was the Today Show's green room. So you walk out some morning, you forget that Tom Brokaw was in town, and Brokaw's in the chair getting makeup done. And you kind of like, Tom was kind of like one of those standoff kind of guy, but you didn't.
Oh, really?
You didn't kind of like, hey, Mr. Brokaw, how you doing?
Alan, they're applying my makeup when you're playing.
Hello, Al. How you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah.
Carry on. Katie Couric was great.
Okay.
Love Katie Couric. You never knew what Katie was going to say, because we would talk back live to the Today Show every day. And I think there was a movie one time that Katie had an interview with one of the director, And I think I asked Katie this question. So, Katie, you ever think about wanting to be in the movies? You know, you're a beautiful woman. And Katie, on camera, today's show, this is live on our air. Katie basically holds her breath and goes, with these knockers? She goes, no, I'm never going to want to be in the movies.
Damn.
You just sit there and you go, oh, my God.
Wow,
Well, then they're not knockers then.
Yeah.
That's what you should have said.
Yeah, nobody's knocking.
And I used to always give Bryant Gumbel a hard time. Not a hard time, but I would always try to see Bryant bring out his personality, which didn't do a lot.
Well, he always seemed to be very cool and reserved.
Yes,
Sort of like, you know, like, oh, okay, that's funny for the rest of you, but I'm, you know.
Yeah, I would ask Bryant questions sometimes that would kind of throw him off, you know, after he teased what we were coming on. And I got a word from the guys who worked in the studio at New York. They go, oh, because one of the stagehands had to go to New York, and he did it a lot. And he goes, oh, I got a message from the stagehands back in New York. They love you. I go, I don't know the stagehands. I go, they love you because you put Bryant on the spot. He didn't know how to handle it.
So he didn't roll with it.
He didn't. But then Bryant, in the mail, about 3 weeks later, comes this letter from Bryant Gumbel. And I still have it today, where he sent me this letter, and he goes, look, Alan, I have to apologize. He goes, you're the only one in the group of the live talkbacks we have to do who kind of goes off script a little bit and asks me questions sometimes, you know, about other stuff. He goes, I swear I'll be better in the future, knowing this is how we want to interact. And it's so funny because the very next week, I think I asked him about a movie. Brian, what are you watching? And Brian Gumbel gave me this movie called, he says, have you seen The Bad Lieutenant? I go, no, I haven't seen that movie.
Oh, God.
Yes. And Brian goes, that's one of my favorite movies. So I went the weekend. I saw The Bad Lieutenant. And all I could say was when we talked to him on Monday, Brian, by the way, I saw The Bad Lieutenant. You are one sick individual.
Yeah.
For liking that movie. I go, the car scene with Harvey Keitel alone.
Traffic stop?
Yes.
Yes. I saw that movie when I lived in New Hampshire, and I still remember that scene.
Yes.
Just like,
Yeah, I said, okay, Brian, I will not ask you for movie recommendations anymore.
Yeah, not for family-friendly movies.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Not date movies either. That's not gonna.
Yeah.
That's not gonna get the girls.
Yeah.
And then great run in Detroit, and then
18 years.
Had you been writing the whole time because you became a novelist? And next thing we know, it's like Alan's going to L.A. I was like, what?
It took me a few years to write it because I'm getting up at 3 a.m.
I was going to say, you're not getting up earlier to write, are you? I mean, how could you?
Right. So, and I'm not a morning. Crazy enough is I'm not a morning person. So I would have to write like early evening. That was my time. So I would write till that time to go to bed. And I still love sports way too much. So sports gets in the way of my writing all the time. You know,
that's why you're not a morning person. You're up too late.
It's killing me because when we moved back here, I'm a huge Dodger fan. Love my Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah.
So I realized it because
good year for the Dodgers.
Excellent year. And realized that to watch Dodger games now, I'm up till like 1:30 in the morning watching Dodger games. You know, my wife's kind of like, okay, you got to stay downstairs. You can't watch this in the bedroom, you know, that kind of stuff. Or, you know, turn the sound down at least, you know. She has to put on blinders sometimes, you know. But, yeah, so that whole situation where I love the Dodgers and that whole thing. But, yeah, it was just really difficult because I used to use the morning when I got back home from work because then you have to, there's downtime.
Sure. I
had 2 dogs. You know, you had to go pick up one at the time. I had 2 kids. I had to pick up both of them from school. You know, that type of activities. You got this? Okay, I got to take you to that. I got to take you to that. So I would use it early, mid-mornings to sort of edit. That was my time to just basically edit what I had written the night before or if I had to do more research.
Okay.
But I couldn't. I was really not in a creative state at that point in time, early in the morning, because, you know. Amy Andrews, who I love Amy to death.
Yeah. She's awesome.
When I had Amy as a co-anchor, at 5 a.m. sometimes she would fill in sometimes. Amy at first thought I didn't like her.
Who could not like Amy Andrews?
Right. And Amy would be like, she would really be quiet around me. And I go, Amy, is everything okay? She goes, well, I kind of feel like you don't like me. I go like, Amy, what gives you that impression? Amy goes, because you're really quiet, like from 5 a.m. to 6.
It's 5 a.m.
That's exactly. I go, Amy, let me tell you something. That first hour, Amy, it takes every ounce I have to concentrate, to get through that hour.
Yeah.
I go 6 o'clock. I start to really wake up and get a little bit livelier and more in depth. That 5 o'clock hour, I've got to proofread all the scripts that are in the system because I always did that.
Oh yeah.
And then by 8 a.m. you had it all memorized.
Yeah,
We're gonna improvise.
So and by the 8 o'clock hour, I'm basically like running a comedy show, 2 drink minimum.
Yeah.
It's almost over,
in the
folks.
groove, you're rolling. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, how's everybody doing? Hey, what's up, Luderman? Hey,
Yeah.
Ben Bailey, what's happening? How you doing, buddy? That kind of stuff. So, but yeah, that's what Amy. It's nothing personal. I love you to death, Amy, but that 5 o'clock hour, I'm getting my coffee.
Leave me alone. Yeah.
My coffee. I'm trying to read the rest of these scripts, and I pay a lot more attention to you starting at 6 a.m.
Yeah. Well, it is tough to get going. And I don't know how you guys do that. Are there any tips that you have for people who have these early shifts just so that you can?
It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
It really isn't. I happen to come from a family. My wife calls it's that lead gene. She goes, "You guys don't need much sleep."
Okay.
I had 2 older brothers, and we would be up all the time, late 2 in the morning. We're still up.
So Sandstorm you wrote while you were still anchoring, like
Yes.
you said. So you wrote. How long did it take you?
Actually, by the time I finally put everything together, about 3 years. Because
Wow.
you just keep tabbing it. And the cool thing, like I said, I read spy stories when I was a kid. I read stuff that was way above my.
You met Robert Ludlum.
I met Robert Ludlum, but before that, I read stuff that was way. My older brothers were reading James Bond.
Oh, sure.
And other stuff, and I was reading those books, and a lot of times I didn't understand them, but because there's like a 9 and 10 year age difference between me and my older brother.
You didn't understand Pussy Galore?
Well, that part you kind of smirked and understood. Yeah.
Ian Fleming on some level was a little boy.
Yeah.
He was a teenage boy with some of.
Every time I saw Goldfinger, I kept going, "How did I get by the censors back then?"
Especially Sean Connery's expression, like, "I must be dreaming."
Yeah, I must be dreaming. Old gal. But then I went to the Virgin Islands, and that's when I worked in the Virgin Islands. I worked at at the newspaper there. It was a Gannett station. I was doing sports. And one of the guys on staff, because he saw me reading a Robert Ludlum novel one day, and he says, he comes here every year. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because, Robert Ludlum comes down here and he stays on the island, he and his wife, and he vacations here. And I go, I know some people who know him. And I go, oh, really? And he goes, well, would you want to interview him? I go, that'd be the greatest thing in the world if you can, I'll do a feature for the paper for that. And he goes,
sure.
And he goes, months went by, and he finally came back to me. He goes, oh, yeah, Ludlum's coming down in 2 weeks. I talked to the people, and they're going to ask him, will he do an interview with you? And they know you're a fan of his. And I said, great. Got back. Robert Ludlum said he can do the interview. The only condition was that don't run it until after he leaves, because he didn't want to be bothered.
He didn't want to get swamped.
So we went to this place. He stayed at this place, which is still there, called Secret Harbor Resort, which is a great little bungalows of beautiful things. And I got in there. His wife answered the door. A very nice lady. Would you like something to drink? Sure. Yeah. Robert came downstairs, and we went on the patio, ocean in the backdrop. And we're talking about writing and everything, and got to meet him. And he was writing a novel at the time in longhand. He wrote in longhand when he was on vacation.
So did Ross McDonald, who did all Lou Archer.
So he had it in his notebook, and he saw that I was out of what I was drinking, and he said, "Would you like another?" And he got up and looked. And so here I am, while he's leaving, trying to turn my head.
Jason Bourne, that's never going to work.
See what he's writing, like, oh, okay. But the greatest advice he gets, and I try to always remember that and incorporate it in my books. The worst thing I hate about watching...
What was the greatest advice he gave you?
I'm going to tell you right now.
Okay.
The worst thing I hate about when I watch series now is when lead characters, get beat up or wounded, and somehow they manage to still just kick butt and survive and do these humongous, superhuman things. And he said, look, when you get shot...
It hurts.
It hurts.
Yeah.
You aren't exactly going to keep running around. He goes, you have to make that believable. If the degree of the injury that you suffered, your character has to reflect that. And I always kept that in the back of my mind. So when I wrote, there's a scene in Ashes to Ashes where Alex Coles deliberately takes a beating, as he has to, in order for something else to work.
Okay.
And the whole thing is he's just basically counting down the time. But he's always he knows I'm gonna get my butt beat here, and it hurts. And the whole point of that was for days after that incident in the book, he's dealing with those injuries.
Yeah, he's not at full power.
Right. Yeah, he's like, okay, I can't go right back out now and kick somebody's butt. I'm in pain. He's in pain, and so I always kind of remember that from Ludlum. Just be real, be realistic in what you're kind of writing. But he was a super nice guy, and to this day in my office I have this because he sent me a nice card weeks after the article, and he goes, Robert Ludlum, thanks so much. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thanks for the wonderful interview in the Virgin Islands Daily News, Robert Ludlum.
He's always given me hope because when I first read his book, I was an intern at a newspaper, and I read that he didn't start writing until he was like 60 years old. He was kind of a minor Broadway actor, and then at some point he's like, I think I'll write these books. And then, Jason Bourne, now his books keep coming out even though he's gone.
Right.
I mean, talk about immortality as an author. That's literally immortality.
Let's find somebody who writes like him and write under the Ludlum name, or it's started by Robert Ludlum.
So when is Alex Coves, your character, when's he going to be the next Jason Bourne?
Ooh, boy, let me tell you something. That's nothing about Hollywood.
By the way, Elmore Leonard said of Sandstorm, which was Alan's first book, Lee gets his book going 100 miles an hour with his hair on fire and barely ever slows down. So that's pretty high praise.
Let me tell you something.
A local master. And I like to read Elmore Leonard as well.
Dutchie's great.
Mm-hmm.
Dutchie Dutchie was extremely successful. Whenever he showed up at the station, he showed up in his old Volkswagen. And I remember I said, I know you can afford a better car.
Yeah.
What are you doing? That was the toughest thing that I had to get Elmore Leonard to give me that blurb.
Get you a blurb, yeah.
Because I had to go to Elmore, and he goes, Alan, hi, what's up? And I go, Elmore, I don't know if you know this, but I just wrote a book, and I'd love...
He's never heard that before, right?
No,
he's never asked you.
He was like, you did? Yeah, and what's it about? And I go, it's an espionage thriller. And I go, it would mean so much to me if you could write a blurb. Now, there are some people who write blurbs, and they go, yeah, just what do you need me to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Elmore was, I need to read it first.
Yeah, he's not wasting that imprimatur on some shit from some local joker.
You talk about pressure when I had to send him the copy of the book, and at that time it's what we call the galleys.
Sure.
You go, I'm waiting day after day.
That's a big ask. You're asking another author, can you stop what you're doing to read 300-400 pages? But the Detroit author.
That guy, whose books are turned into movies and everything else is praised, is writing.
He knows Burt Reynolds personally.
Yeah. You want to learn how to write, copy Elmore Leonard. You want to learn how to write a scene, dialogue, copy Elmore Leonard. So he finally got back to me and he goes, okay. Because he said, I'm not going to just give you a blurb. I have to kind of, my name's out there on that. So.
And he could call you back and say, hard pass.
Yeah, hard pass. And I would have said, I appreciate it.
Good luck, little buckaroo.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But when he came back with that, he goes, all right, I'm going to send it to you, and I appreciate you letting me read it. Good luck. I was like flabbergasted. I couldn't wait to call my editor and
I'm sure the publisher was very happy.
I got a blurb for you, and they were like, Elmore Leonard, wow. I'm like, oh, thank you. So but that was but we've gone through 3 options in Hollywood, and a lot of it's basically more of an independent thing. I remember the very first Hollywood meeting I went to. Now I'm still in my Midwest mindset.
Yeah.
Of when you got a meeting that's important, you got to dress up. So I'm getting. It's a hot day in L.A. and I put on my best suit.
Yep.
And I'm dressed. I show up in this.
You're ready for business.
I'm ready. I'll get there, with the other guy that kind of like is part of the whole group with me. These guys walk out of their offices in jeans and hats on.
But they can.
Right.
They're the ones who get to say yes.
Yes. And we were talking there, one guy goes, Al, we kind of read it. I really like it. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but, let's take a look at it. And he goes, who do we have in mind to play these roles, this role? And he goes, oh, yeah, in the future, if we have meetings, you don't have to show up in a suit. Yeah. He goes, we have A-list actors who come up and they're wearing shorts and flip-flops. Yeah. He goes, this is Hollywood. No need to come dressed up like that. And I felt so like, No, thanks.
My God, yeah.
Outsider in the big town. Thanks.
Yeah, you just showed your ass, Rook.
Yeah. So, like I said, to that, the first option fell through. We were real close, but it fell through. And went to somebody else, kind of picked it up and interested in it. So, right now we're still looking for. I think there's a Italian, no, not Italian now. It's a German company that's kind of interested. So we're going to see where that goes.
Well, I had heard from my agent, and when I was trying to get my Kilpatrick book published, which didn't happen. Maybe you can give me a referral. But there was, and a blurb, please. But and I read about one of my favorite. I like science fiction, and one of my favorite science fiction authors had a similar story where they got to a point where they just kept selling the options.
Yeah,
you get so much money, and they get so much time, and my agent was saying this one case that when they finally made the movie, the author was actually bummed out because you get so much for making the movie. But if people keep buying the option, this was like an annuity. He was getting a check every year because somebody's going to do it. God, I hope they never do because then the gravy train goes off the rails. So hopefully,
because then you get the option, and then it's like, okay, we want to exercise the second year of the option. Good, go ahead.
Yeah,
that's an extra $50,000 or $100,000. Go right ahead.
Yeah,
that's not fine. So and that'd be on top of if we actually start shooting this thing. Because then you get paid. I don't know, options is like you really start getting the bulk of that on first day of shooting.
Okay.
So the actual day that you start shooting that thing, you're good as golden then because it's like, okay, you guys owe me a lot of money right now. It has to be in the mail, or in my account within a few days. So you wait for principal photography to start because then there's no going back.
What if someone optioned the book and totally changed 80% of it? Would you be fine with that, or would you be like, "Oh,
you know what? I've had a bunch of people."
That's a welcome to Hollywood moment.
Well, yeah,
because Elmore Leonard hated how most of his books were adapted.
You unless you have just crazy amount of power, you have to sort of live with that reality.
They're going to do it anyway.
Right? Because the way that process works, and it's who changes it. That's kind of important. It's not so much necessarily the people that take the option. It's when it gets to the director's hands sometimes that things change. Because the director is the one who goes, well, I want to scratch that. I don't like that. I want bigger explosions here.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's not the whole point of, and so but you sort of give that up, understanding that, well, the creative license, as long as you can keep some of the principal ideas.
And imagine once Tom Cruise gets attached and he's got some ideas, it's like, sir, I'm Alan Lee from Detroit. I thought maybe he's like, did you hear anything? I didn't hear anything.
Right.
It's like,
right.
Okay. Quiet on the set.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing. My agent, though, when talking about Sandstorm before it got accepted finally by a publisher, that she was going, I'm having a difficult time, and this is why. And she goes, this is the response I'm getting from one particular publisher. They love it. There's not enough sex. I said, but that's not the
I have the same problem.
So
what's the solution? I've been looking.
The whole idea in the back of my head in Sandstorm was, well, there's not supposed to be because there's this tension between Alex Coles and Nora Mosa where they split.
Yeah.
And that there's that tension where he doesn't want to see her again. He doesn't want anything to do with her. So now you're telling me you want me to throw in somehow
a visit to a whorehouse, I guess.
Make them get together to have some sort of interaction. And I said, it doesn't make sense to me. That's not where I was going. But if you're telling me that if I just throw in a couple of sex scenes, that it's going to get sold all of a sudden. She goes, I believe that's going to make a difference.
Wow. Can you do the James Bond approach where there's a sex scene before the story starts?
There you go.
So I threw a couple in. Next thing I know, she goes, we got a book deal.
Damn.
Wow.
I thought that was just really, and here I was really basically coming from a guy's, you figure a guy would like, more sex.
Yeah,
more
exactly.
Sex, put in more sex. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And she was like, no, they want more sex in the book.
It always sells. I mean, look at romance novels, right?
Yeah. So that was a hard lesson for me now.
A buddy of mine in Chicago wrote a fantastic detective book, and he's an incredibly talented. He's another journalist. These are great, and these books haven't really taken off. But he has one sex scene in it, And everything else about it is fantastic. It's the one part of the book where I'm reading and I'm kind of cringing because I'm like, I don't, writing sex has got to be really hard without sounding like penthouse letters or like you're a Puritan or something.
And here's the worst thing, because I trust my wife's editing abilities tremendously. So whenever I finish my manuscript, I always give it to her.
Yeah.
She makes all the first initial edits before I ever send it off. And she takes a red pen and just kills everything. I mean, I'm just like, really? And she's like, look, do you want it to be better? And so when I had to put in that sex part, I was like, oh, God, I had to write the sex scene, and my wife's got to read it. And I'm like, I don't know if I will.
She's thinking, Alan, are you trying to tell me something?
Right. So I'm like, this is going to be kind of tough to put this part in. But, she is the toughest editor there is. And she was like, really? Cut it. I mean, the notes she would make, I used to go like, do you love me? Really? I mean, the notes.
That's why she's doing it. She loves you. Yeah.
I mean, can you just like pput the red mark in there and say, change this? Do you have to like put these little nasty notes?
Ball gag, no. Not here, not in your book.
Like, really? Why would your character do this? And she didn't even like, I'm not giving anything away. Alex Coves is a guy that used to play football. Professional football. That was his job before he became a CIA agent. She goes, now who's going to believe that? She goes, the guy that really played pro sports, now a spy.
What about Johnny Utah?
Yeah, so
he's real.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, Point Break.
Sandstorm came out, and I got this email from this guy who runs this think tank business in D.C. He works with the government. Out of nowhere. And I even looked up this corporation, and it's real. And this guy does threat assessment for the U.S. government, this company. And in the email, he goes, hey, I got your book. And he goes, I'm just curious about something. How'd you come up with your lead character? And I go, I just kind of thought it was kind of a cool idea. Did it on a whim, ex-football player. I go, and the position he plays, I go, and I tried to explain to my wife, honey, most football players aren't known to people unless you're the quarterback.
Yeah.
Or like you're the star running back.
Right.
But if you're a lineman or a defensive back, most people have no idea what you really look like or who you are. But this guy goes, and I said, it's kind of made it up. And I sent it back to him, and he sent it back an email and goes, that's interesting. He goes, I know someone who's going to be really interested in this character. He goes, I'll let him know about this. I can't get in touch with him for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But I'll let him know when I can, and he'll be really touched by this. And I was like, wow, this guy actually knows a spy.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I mean, who used to play football, pro football. And I kept going, who could this be? Who could this person be then? But you're never going to know that. But yeah, that guy sort of made it legit in my mind. Like, well, I created something that actually is happening out there.
That's cool. And to sell a book, it's hard with nonfiction. But at least with nonfiction, you kind of know there are subjects people are interested in. But fiction, spy fiction. I mean, even I have, probably a dozen pages of some spy novel that I've started. I mean, how do you break through when so many, and so few books are selling now, unless it's James Patterson on the cover. You're competing with the dead Robert Ludlum, for Pete's sake.
It's a crowded field. There's no question about it. And to break through is really tough. So, most people just have moderate sales, and you're satisfied with that. That's happy. Being published author.
Can you make a living?
Yeah, you can, sure. Okay. But being a published author in its own right is nice. It's bragging rights. The thing is, I don't write enough, which is a big problem for me. But you have to. Nelson DeMille, who just basically passed away a few weeks ago, I met him, and he talked to me, and he goes, it's going to take a while. He goes, there are very rare instances where you're going to go right to the top and be a superstar. He goes, it may sometimes take you 5-6 books.
Sheesh.
Before you become, to that stratosphere where you are making a lot of money and people, you're shooting up on the bestseller list.
Yeah.
David Baldacci, who used to be an inspiration to all of us, I don't know how many people read his books, but he got a multi-million-dollar deal on his first book. And the guy bought it. They gave it to this editor. He read it on the train ride home from New York City to his suburb. Made an offer the very next day for a multi-million-dollar contract. And he loved it so much, David Baldacci immediately shot up to the top of the ranks because of that. So it happens, but most time it's just, you write because it's, and again, that's what we talked about, before. You're not really writing to be successful. You're writing because you love the craft, you love doing it, and there's something in your head that you just want to get out. And so you hope that other people will like it as much as you do when you write it. When you write things, it's difficult when you write spy novels to me because, yeah, you can create stuff, but science fiction to me, like Game of Thrones and those things, that to me is somewhat, it's totally your imagination.
Right.
So
Flying dragons, sorcerers.
Any environment that you absolutely want to in your head and sell it. It's your world.
Right.
It's your rules.
That's why they call it fantasy.
Yeah, look at George Lucas, man.
It's your world. But when you write thrillers, you get called on certain things. Like you have to know how a weapon works.
Yeah.
If you mess that up, dude, you can't.
Well, you covered sports. There's all those nerds out there. You get a statistic wrong, or so-and-so's the best second baseman ever. Well, I think you must not be thinking about. And you're like, oh my God.
A lot of these things in the book are there are scenes that happen on real streets in Europe. And that's why, thank goodness for Google Maps.
I was going to say, no travel budget, Alan?
Yeah, Google Maps, sometimes you can walk streets and you can see it for yourself in the daytime or nighttime. So that's a huge help. But even in terms of restaurants being someplace, or there's a scene in Ashes to Ashes where certain trains that leave to Moscow. Or those are the real trains.
Yeah.
I mean, those are actual trains, actual schedule that I had to research and look up. And it's just those. So when you're writing, it's those little things that kind of trip you up because you think you do all the research in the world. And then all of a sudden you get stuck on something like, well, I think I need to go into detail about that. Or I had no idea for Sandstorm anything about nuclear like centrifuges and things of that nature. That took a tremendous amount of research to find that stuff and to go, okay, how can I incorporate this and not make it too boring?
Yeah.
Too technical that people are like, so.
That's like, probably where Shawn is helpful, right? If she gets bored, you got to cut it out.
Right, exactly.
Shawn being your wife.
She goes, I don't quite understand this, but she goes, sometimes I understand why you got to put it in there.
Yeah.
Tom Clancy was guilty of that a lot. He was so technical.
Oh, right.
So
yeah, they would accuse him of having actually plans for submarines before they actually built them at the electric boat.
Extremely technical, and you really had to sometimes get through some of his books to like, ooh, dude, this is heavy hitting.
Yeah.
But the military people loved it.
Yeah.
That crowd was like, oh, this is on point. This is totally right. This is believable. I know this can happen. So you get called out on that if you're not right. A lot of this stuff is when I worked in D.C., they knew I was so interested in intelligence community. So I got to cover a lot of the intelligence. I remember we had to go, one CIA officer was, she was claiming discrimination at the CIA. She was female. And it was in federal court in Virginia. And we would all be in the courtroom, and they had to bring her in a mask. And in certain testimony, they were like, okay, I need to clear the courtroom. Public, you have to go. Reporters, you have to go because there's testimony about to be made now on very sensitive stuff that you all can't listen to. So
lives are on the line.
Yeah. And so we would all be outside the courtroom, and you would kind of like, okay, because we never knew what this woman really looked like because she was an undercover agent.
Yeah.
And so, but all the CIA people, especially the women that were covering this case, would obviously be out there in support. So I got to meet and talk with a lot of the, CIA operatives.
That's awesome.
Out the, waiting to go back into court and hanging around. And I did this story one time. I don't even remember the circumstances, but they had lost their son, and they had a daughter who went to this private school in suburban D.C. And somehow our story, I think, was about kids adjusting to loss. And somehow the school had convinced these people to let us do a story on their daughter, young girl, and the difficulties and the challenges of that. And sweetest little girl. And the parents, of course, were really hesitant, But, I think somebody said, you're going to like him. He's really good with kids, and he's going to handle this with all the respect that it deserves. I met these people. He worked in naval intelligence, which I did not know until he got there. And because he had gotten there a little late, and his wife said, well, my husband should be here. And he goes, he works for the government. I go, oh, cool. What is he doing? He goes, I really don't know what he does. Yeah. and she goes, he works naval intelligence. Yeah. So he got there, and we were talking, and they go, well, funny, your wife said you didn't know. She goes, I can't tell her what I do.
Yeah.
And I go, wow, you're that? He goes,
Mark has the same problem.
I always feel like that was a device.
But he hangs out in a basement with a bunch of other dudes, so he doesn't really want her to know what he does.
No, but sometimes I felt like that. I'm watching Lioness, right? And Lioness is the
great
same
show.
Oh, it's a phenomenal show. But it's one of those things where she can't tell people what she does. I'm like, how much of that is really true? But it makes sense.
Yeah. He goes. He goes. There are certain things I really can't. I said, my wife has never been to my work. He said, my wife's never been to my work. She can't come.
Yeah.
It's that.
No clearance, right?
It's where I work, she can't come to.
Which is why when you see those dudes that are total pieces of shit that will they'll lie and scam people, they'll be like, I work for the CIA, so I can't tell you what I do. It's like, okay, well, I guess that's why people go to that.
So he knew back then that I was interested in intelligence and I wanted to write a book one day. And we were talking about cases, and I can't remember what the case was going on. And it was some big case about how much damage this guy had done to the U.S. And the guy said, let me tell you something. That guy's not the biggest damage that's been done to the U.S. And I said, really? And he goes, and I forget, and everybody knows what this case is now. He goes, there's this guy.
Is it Snowden or
it was before that. Okay. But the guy goes, there's a guy that we
Falcon
had to,
and the Snowman
that we had to finally arrest. He's done the biggest damage to this country of anybody. He goes, he sold the Russians the ability to locate all our nuclear subs. He goes, so every Russian for a while knew where every one of our nuclear subs was located at.
Wow.
He goes, so we had to totally go in and change everything immediately once we knew that protocol had been broken. He goes, that's the biggest thing. He goes, so for about a week or a few days, we were living in a very perilous time. You know, because he goes, if the Russians
First
had
strike,
decided to...
How long ago are we talking?
This was back in the, what was in D.C. in 90? It was back in the early 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, he goes,
Aldrich Ames, or was he before? He would have been.
Yeah, it was about Aldrich Ames' time. Yeah, he was like, we were in perilous times. But he also told me, that was another thing, you know, he told me where to look for things, ideas in books. He goes, newspapers sometimes are great resources for what's going on in the world. And he goes, we plant a lot of stuff.
Sure.
He goes, a lot of stories are planted.
Fake news.
He goes,
real fake news.
And real.
Okay.
He goes, there's a lot of real stuff going on. Because it won't be first page news. He goes, it'd be like sometimes in the 6th page, 7th page little article. You know, we want that stuff to get out there eventually. And it's in there. And he goes, you guys really got to just learn how to read a newspaper the right way. And so he taught me that. He says, so Sandstorm actually was something that was based on something that I actually saw in the newspaper.
Okay.
And it's real. Come to find out later that it actually happened. Whereas the Israel and the United States were gotten together where they were producing these bad products and selling them to the Iranians as good products.
Not like the pagers?
Well, that's what somebody recently just said. Dude, you know that thing you did in Sandstorm? The pagers thing is kind of like the same concept.
Yeah.
I go, it happens, you know, and as long as, you know, they come across as being safe when somebody inspects them, and then you can control it later. Yeah, it happens.
God, can you imagine being the one guy in the Middle East who's making a living off of pages? Like, no, these are the good ones. Like, You're out of business.
They're closed up and left a long time
you better
ago.
get back to Western
Union. Bought these from you.
Yeah. Or the one guy who's not involved, he's like, no, these are good ones. I can't take a chance, brother.
Yeah.
I'm getting me an iPhone.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Alan, would you hold up your book? Hold up Ashes to Ashes.
Hey,
so
man.
folks
Like I said, this is
looking at it, watching us can see the cover. This is the latest Alex Cove's novel. We have Ashes to Ashes and Sandstorm. For those of you who are Patreon subscribers, you can take a look at those covers. Check them out. Holidays are coming up. Books are a great gift. And if you're like me and you're staying at your in-laws, it's your one chance every year to read books because they're all talking and shopping and catching up. And I don't speak Greek, so I'm like, let me check out these books. So
now don't be confused. There's a guy who writes named Alan Lee.
Well, did you think about changing your name, like Richard Hardoni or something?
Just add
like
the
that?
L.
But see, because there used to be a guy named Alan Lee who was an illustrator.
It's not an uncommon name.
Right, but this Alan Lee was famous because he is an illustrator for what is that? The
He's
Hobbit
English,
movies.
right? Because I saw him on Wikipedia.
He does an illustration for like the Hobbits and that whole series.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yes. So I said, well, I don't want to use the same name as that guy, so I'll just put the L in my name.
Well, that's good because you have the website Alan L.E. So.
Right. But then there was a guy who came behind me and started writing, and he named Alan Lee. But he writes detective stories.
Oh, geez.
And he writes a lot.
Okay.
So some people, sometimes I get some of his mail like, oh, I like this story. Like, I'm sorry, you got the wrong one.
Oh, why don't you write him back and just be a total jerk?
Not because, you know what, that's in the spirit of...
I'm just kidding.
You should write him back and say, boy, it sounds like you missed Sandstorm, which I think
you
you
know
do.
what I do. I go, I'm sorry you reached the wrong guy. I think it's great that you're reading.
Yeah.
I'm the guy who writes espionage thrillers. You're looking for the other guy. And I go, by the way, my books are
Check it out. Yeah, hell yeah.
She goes, oh, I'm so sorry. And I would definitely check out your books. Thank you. You know, so.
Okay. Well, Alan L. Lee, author of Sandstorm and Ashes to Ashes, at a bookstore near you, perhaps coming to a screen near you. Thanks for coming in. Alan's going to stick around and record our bonus episode. We have our bonus episode coming up for members of the Soulmates. And I think Shawn will be joining us at some point very soon. And before we get to our Geek of the Week, I need to tell you about Dr. Yaldo. Another year will soon be in the books, and we hope it's not another year when you knew that Dr. Yaldo could change your life by giving you glasses-free 20/20 vision, but you didn't make the call for one reason or another. Fearful of surgery? No need. I've had it. It's not that big a deal. His painless procedure takes minutes and will have you back to work the next day. Although maybe he'll give you a note and you can take a day off. Expensive? Not really. It saves you a lifetime of forking over contacts, frames, reading glasses, and prescription changes. Whether it's custom LASIK, that in most cases gives stunning 20/15 vision for 24/7, you never have to take off or put on LASIK. It's always there with you. And the Clearview bifocal lens implant is the Rolls Royce for the 45-plus crowd. No more readers, no chance of getting cataracts, and you'll see tiny and distant in the pure HD. Up close, far away, sharp as a tack. Evaluation is free. Sign up at yaldoeyecenter.com. And if you can't see a future without working until you die, call Luke Nowacki. Full disclosure, Luke Nowacki has never spoken to Corey Feldman for any reason whatsoever. If you know the Drew Lane Show, you know what we're talking about. He would like to talk to you, however. Call him at 248-663-4748 and give the Drew Lane podcast a review, or Drew might stop paying his taxes. And while you're there, throw a little love towards the Soul of Detroit. We'd also appreciate your ratings, your reviews. And if you call Luke, say, I love that Drew Lane Show, but it's ML. ML's the reason I'm calling. Because if you call Luke, he'll make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through
WMAQ Wealth.
Inc. member FINRA-SIPC.
WMAQ Wealth.
Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent.
WMAQ Wealth.
Inc.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
Police went looking for Tory Moore because they thought he killed somebody. And they raided his apartment, and oh boy, they couldn't believe what they found. As SWAT officers gathered outside the apartment door before sunrise, the target on the other side commanded their full attention. Just 12 hours earlier, Tory Moore had gunned down a convenience store clerk in Montgomery County, Maryland, the Washington Post reports. The team burst in and quickly spotted Moore sleeping on a bare mattress near the kitchen. And they got him in handcuffs. Two officers then rushed into his bedroom and spotted a comforter on the floor covering a big lump. Is somebody hiding there, they thought? Show me your hands, Officer Michael Henry yelled. A colleague lifted off the blanket, revealing a bloated body. This would not fit on Alan's morning show. Scurrying mice and the overwhelming stench of death. They were prepared to find the defendant, Tory Moore, inside that apartment, Prosecutor James Dietrich told jurors this week. But what they weren't prepared for was to find the rotting corpse of Denise Middleton on the floor of the defendant's bedroom. Denise Middleton, who was 8.5 months pregnant. On Friday, after less than 2 hours of deliberation, jurors convicted Moore of 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Middleton and their unborn child. Evidence showed Moore shot Middleton 7 times.
Jesus.
You want to be thorough. At least 4 rounds entered her back. Then he left the apartment, moving about the Washington area for several days while typing what would prove to be incriminating Google searches into his phone. Among them, how long before body starts to stink?
Oh, God.
And how to move dead body without being seen. Drew Crime would be a good consultant. On this case.
You're not supposed to Google it.
Yeah, don't Google it. If you want to use Netscape 2.0, you can do it because nobody's still using that. Or
Ask Jeeves.
Yes. Moore hit the road to North Carolina, then to California aboard a bus, and returned home a month later with Middleton's body still on the bedroom floor. He lived there for 26 days with this corpse before the SWAT team showed up. In court, when the verdict was announced, Moore remained seated and didn't visibly react. He had been convicted earlier in the year for killing the store clerk inside the Dash-In convenience store on New Hampshire Avenue in the county's West Oak area, just across the street from Moore's apartment. So Tory Moore, when we talk about geeks, they don't get any geekier than you. So we're sorry that you were convicted. Well, not really. We're sorry you have to do time. Not really. But we're pleased to give you some good news. You are this week's geek.
Hey guys!
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
Now that we're done with Shawn's favorite part of the show, we get to Shawn's second favorite part of the show, which is room 7609. We're going to do something a little different this week because tomorrow, Wednesday, is the annual Thanksgiving is Murder concert at the Magic Bags featuring the Smiths United. Now, I've asked listeners if you'd like to get together before the show. So far, Don's the only one to take me up on the invitation. Please let me know. Send an email to mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com if you'd like to get together before the show. We may be meeting at the Imperial. If you send me an email, I will send you details. If you need tickets, let me know. They're $25 each. Otherwise, you can go on Eventbrite. This is the Smiths United. It's an annual event. It's a great time. I hope to see you there. And here, for a change, instead of a song, is a little preview of this week's festivities.
I decree today that life is simply taking and not giving. England is mine. It owes me a living. No, stop me. Stop me if you think that you've heard this one before. Nothing's changed. I still love you. I still love you. The boy with the thorn in his side. Behind the hatred there lies a wondering desire for love.
It's not the Smiths.
Well, the Cars cover band is going to be opening for them, as well as another great cover band whose name escapes me right now. Oh, it's a Chrissie Hynde, Pretenders
Hindsight,
cover
yeah.
band, Hindsight.
That previous one was the Used Cars.
Yes, Used Cars, who are very, very good if you like the Cars. And Hindsight, which is a new addition to the lineup. Usually there's a Susie and the Banshees cover band that's also fantastic. I think it's Playground Twist. But you can catch all these acts on Wednesday. If you miss them, this week they play around town a lot, so please catch that. And I did go see the Morrissey show last week with Kevin. I was I don't want to say accosted, but many people who listen to this show and who went to that show came up to me and said, tell Mark and Shawn to get their shit together with the Smiths and Morrissey and Johnny Marr. It's great music. Matt specifically said, tell Shawn to open his ears, to open his mind, and most of all, to open his heart.
Oh, his heart's always opened.
It's
now he's moving around.
Okay.
Are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Shawn, we are joined by Alan L. Lee. He said, I'm not getting on with Alan Lee. I said, no, this is Alan L. Lee. And he said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
He turned around and found a parking spot so he could be involved. And, by the way, Smiths United, they play a lot at the Caju Cafe, which is the pride of the East Side. They bring us 7609 every week. But you can find great food there, great fun there. They have feather bowling, one of the few places in North America where you can do that. And you can start your week off right with Muscle Madness every Monday. They also have a lot of blues playing on Monday night. This Wednesday, karaoke if you feel like belting it out. Thursday, Thanksgiving. They're closed for Thanksgiving. Friday, Natives of the New Dawn. Great band. You may see me there for that show. This is a terrific local group that comes back every year. Saturday, if you're a Grateful Dead fan, you're going to want to catch Super Crunch and end the weekend on a high note with Delta 5 on Sunday. For more information on the music and the menu, go to cajucafe.com. And when you see John there, tell him that you're only there because ML sent you and he would beat your ass otherwise. And if you read Alan's books, you know that if I beat your ass, it will hurt for several days.
It will hurt, yes.
You will not recover right away.
Yeah.
That is an Alex Cove kicking, I call that.
You got all that? You got all that, Shawn?
Alex kicks a lot of ass, doesn't he?
Yeah, I'm still unsettled from the Geek of the Week. I thought we were just pointing out boobs and clowns and that sort of thing. Why do we need to say a murderer is a Geek of the Week?
That's why we brought you in. You're a boob and a clown.
Are you trying to impress Alan? I mean, what the heck?
Alan would not have that kind of tawdry content on his show.
That's right.
I kept waiting for a reverse twist into something silly.
Yeah, no, Alan would say they had a non-traditional relationship.
There you go. That works better.
They were cohabitating.
No, I mean, okay, you start with the killing of the convenience clerk. I'm like, oh, okay. And then we're into a rotting corpse that he shot 7 times. What the fuck, man? I thought this was supposed to be a little bit more lighthearted about
It's the holidays. We're trying to lighten it up. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't have a psychopath coming over for the holidays? Now they don't seem so bad, right? Because Terry Moore...
It just seems a little redundant, especially, on Thanksgiving week to say, oh, this guy is a 2-time murderer. Let's call him the Geek of the Week.
Well, maybe it's the fact that justice has been served that is
Shawn's for tougher penalties.
Yeah.
Should have strived for better.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Terry, come on. We all deserved better, especially your roommate. I guess that's, at least he didn't charge your rent for that last 26 days. And the cable bill, that's all on Terry. It's not so bad.
And by the way, who wants me to open up my mind and heart and or listener who wants me to listen to the Smiths?
Matt.
Yeah.
Matt insisted, in fact. It wasn't an invitation, it was a demand.
You tell Matt I will.
Why don't you tell Matt yourself by coming out on Wednesday for the Thanksgiving is Murder show? And Geek of the Week is murder. It's kind of a murder theme here.
I don't believe you anyway.
Yeah, that didn't seem so sincere there.
He's so full of shit.
Yeah.
Shawn, you can fool us, but you're not going to fool Alan L. Lee.
Nice to meet you, by the way, Alan.
Same here. I appreciate you showing up in the studio there. No, but
it's our mobile studio.
Got things to do.
Yeah,
people got things to do. He's got a life.
Yeah,
we don't have a life.
He is actually looking after the better half.
Yeah,
and it ain't even close. Yeah. So we appreciate that. We are running headlong to the end of the show. Can we get a little music bed there, Marc from Max Prokop, who is the bass player for the Smiths United? We commissioned this great music for him, so we could give you some of your feedback.
Are you getting a cut of the ticket sales?
I am not.
Okay.
I am not. But occasionally they give me a backstage pass, which actually costs me because I always try and bring a round back for the band because
they serve alcohol. Get a portion of the alcohol.
There you go.
I was thinking about that. I'm more on the consumption than on the
you can do both.
Profit side.
And then you're just paying yourself.
Right.
See, I can
that way.
I can learn a lot from Alan. We're going to have him.
It's like when you make investments. Don't you invest in stuff that you use?
There you go. Invest in what you know.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get some Guinness stock.
Like if you get Apple, right? I'm assuming you got an Apple phone.
I had an Apple last week.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So, yeah, I do have an Apple phone. Believe me. That's
buy Apple stock.
That is a major investment. I think my phone cost less than a share of Apple stock.
Well,
but it's pretty close. Pretty close. Well, we would thank our donors, but we don't have any, and we are losing a major sponsor next week. So please, if you can, become a Patreon supporter of the show. It's really easy for as little as $5 a month. You get a shout out on the show. You get to see the show. You get to hear the show before everybody else. And those annoying insertion ads that we put in to supplement our meager income you're not bothered by those either. So please think about it. One of our Patreon supporters, Rick, the Immaculate Circumcision, says, Teresa always has a great segment. That's my wife, Teresa Baldus. Like Alan, I have a prominent news maker in my family, and she was talking about this tug-of-war between the prosecutor in Oakland County and the Michigan Attorney General over who is going to try and get justice for the families of the Oxford High School murders. And just recently, if you subscribe to the Free Press, I think we're doing a special now. It's $25 for 2 years subscription. That's pretty good. The Oakland County prosecutors officially said, hey, AG, can you take this on? And as Teresa's reported, there's some question as to whether or not that Oakland County prosecutor should have held on to the case herself. And we also appreciate your feedback. Kim writes to mlsolvedetroit@gmail.com. Maybe something you can flesh out on the podcast. You weren't clear about how exactly that county commissioner got caught up with the feds. So if you missed my column on Sunday, I wrote about the chairman of the Monroe County Commission who got busted by the feds for allowing some people to grow weed on his land and sell it in Ohio. Now, he resigned from his position on the Monroe County Commission when people found out about this. Somehow he'd kept this secret for 4 years, and he resigned. But not before it was too late for him to take his name off the ballot, and he was elected because he was the only person on the ballot. And instead of saying, you know what I did was bad enough that I should quit once, I'm going to quit again. Instead, he said, I'm going to keep this gig, and I'm going to serve the first year of my term while I'm serving in federal prison.
Well, the people want him. What are you supposed to do?
Man of the people.
Yeah, I guess when there's only one name on there and they vote for you, that's that's Vox Populi. Yeah. How can you ignore them?
Exactly.
The hoi polloi have spoken. So I wrote about that and how it's causing all kinds of troubles in Monroe County, including some questions about why are people who work for the county writing letters seeking leniency for their boss who's in trouble with the feds? And why is a state senator writing a letter on state Senate stationery saying, hey, this is a righteous dude, please cut him a break? Well, it turns out that the commissioner, Mark Brandt, wasn't telling everybody everything they needed to know. At any rate, Kim wonders, I'm not a farmer or farm landowner, so I don't get how he knew full well the men who leased his land were selling that weed in Ohio. Did he know from the outset this was illegal activity?
Great question.
Or did he get ensnared in a wire snitch situation after the Ohio men got caught up in a legal drama? Take care, Kim. Well, Kim, from the court pleadings, which I reviewed and shared with my column, he said he knew they were growing weed. And he said, hey, you know what? It's not that big a deal. So come on, what's the big deal? And when the feds finally busted him, it must have been pretty lucrative because they took over $300,000 in cash from his home. And as part of his plea deal, he agreed to pay $500,000 in restitution. Now, Mr. Brandt and his lawyers say, hey, weed's not that big a deal. Sure, he broke the law, but in 29 states, 37 states, depending on the law, it's legal to grow and sell and distribute weed.
Can't go over state lines.
Yeah, but here's the problem. You knew it was illegal and you did it anyways, so that's why you got in trouble. Kim, there is more to this story, and I will be continuing to look into it. Like, why did he get a year and a half in federal prison when the guy who was actually selling the weed only got probation? There's more answers to come, and you'll only get to read them if you subscribe to the Free Press. Again, it's really, really cheap. And along with your subscription, you get to read the superlative work of Mr. Shawn Windsor.
Oh, that's very kind.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why are you going after people that are just raising a plant that makes others feel good?
Because it's illegal. Just like killing your pregnant girlfriend and leaving her baby under a comforter. I guess you're in favor of that now too.
So now we're equating weed farmers with murderers. That's good.
It's this kind of permissive culture that's ruining America. We are going to make Monroe great again, Shawn.
I have a question. Can you have an OnlyFans page in prison?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I doubt it. You can date, though. They have those dating sites.
In federal prison, you do have access to the internet, but I think it's mainly
block
for
stuff,
email.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but you can run an operation from prison, though, right? I mean, he can keep.
Yeah, he could grow.
Selling.
White Boy Rick was selling stolen cars from prison, although he doesn't like to talk about it. So, yeah, there's all kinds of hustles that go on that way. The other way you can support the show, and if you're watching us, you see Shawn is wearing a very fetching hoodie. I'm going to show off my, let's camera on me. Camera on me. That's the way it should be. Check out my awesome hockey-style hoodie. Our merchandise store is open, and you can make your purchases. There, look at that. Look at that. Speaking of boobs on the podcast, look at that. C-Cup Shawn. Well done.
Those are just folds.
If Alan had that much sex in his books as you have in that hoodie, they would have done that movie. And it would be an OnlyFans movie. That may be the studio you're looking for, Alan. I don't know. Let's take it to the streets. But we will be, the merchandise store will be open for a couple of weeks. We do have some new women's items inspired by Erica Erickson, who is very disappointed, Alan, she can't be here because she's working at Channel 4 during the day, but she will be back with us in December when she moves to nights. But the merchandise store is a great way to support us and to support the show and get something in return for your hard-earned money. And in fact, one of our biggest fans and best friends, Teebs, has given us this little PSA for those of you wondering how you can support the show and look great doing it.
And for those that might not remember, Teebs is the super fan that the Tigers recognized. They even made a Topps baseball card about him. So
they're getting ready to fly him out to New York if the Tigers had beaten the Indians. Or the Guardians.
Don't dead name them. But here's his sales pitch. He's got a lot of merch behind him there.
Hey guys, it's me, Teebs. I got something to recommend. Let's be soulmates. One way to support the show is buying merch. I really like the merch. The show's logo and design rock.
Look at those guns.
The show just lost their best sponsor. They got very few donors, and donations are preferred, but there's another win-win way to keep the show rolling. Buy merch. That way, you get something, and the show gets something as well. Here, sheesh, have a koozie. Have 2 koozies.
Now he's just throwing things
have
at
3,
the screen.
4.
Oh, he knocked his camera down.
Or more. Great stocking stuff.
I love it. It's all one take.
Yeah, that's great production.
Holiday gift items. Let's join forces. Come on now. Support the soul of Detroit with me.
He's scaring me into buying merch.
He's highly motivated. Oh, the Magic 8 Ball. Uh-oh. All signs point to buy merch.
Man, I used to have one of those.
Yes. Very likely. Endless merch.
Now he's got your flag.
It's good for you.
Oh, it's a see-through flag,
for the show.
Yeah. I didn't know they made more than one. Wow. There you go. Good sales
What's impressive is he shot that in front of the same fire where Biden and Trump were meeting. So Teeb is, he goes all the way for the show. So we'd appreciate it if you could support us by buying some of our cool swag. It will ship before the holidays, so you'll have some great, unique gifts for the people.
Link on the site.
And you say there's women's wear coming.
There is women's wear. Erica has designed a crop top and a sweatshirt, and
Erica's designed this.
Erica's designed this.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah. We're not having any. We're not having any game worn stuff for the creeps out there. This is just for the ladies.
Oh Jesus! What's that, Shawn?
She designed it for me to wear, right? And model.
Yes, that's right. She was talking about that. Yeah.
Actually,
it'll be an X-rated program.
It turns out, the Shawn thong is coming up for the summer merch store.
See that, boy.
This is the kind of butt floss that Alan used to see on the Virgin Islands, where he said, "You know what? Sometimes living near the beach isn't such a good thing."
One quick story. When I lived there, you speak of that. There was a place called Megan's Bay Beach, which is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. Yeah. I was there early one day before work, and Playboy was shooting a thing at the very end of the beach.
Why did you leave, Alan? I still
okay. And at that time, I must admit, I was in great shape. I mean, I worked out every day, played basketball every day, baseball every day. At the total end of the beach. So she's walking back by in the production crew, gorgeous woman. And I just kind of, because you could see down at the very end, but you couldn't see well, but you could just see enough what was going on in the shoot. Yeah. And I walked by and I just said, "Hey, nice shoot." Gave her a thumb up. And she looked at me back and she goes, Not bad yourself.
Ooh.
Woo!
Ooh.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah.
I just kind of laid back on the beach like Tom Cruise would do, and just kind of like, yeah.
You were like, oh, wait, come back here. Let's talk some more.
No, yeah, but it was like, yeah, there's my moment.
Oh, man. That woman's name? Shawn Lee.
You're not too far off.
Not too far off. A beautiful woman.
She is
and
a gorgeous
talented
lady.
and smart and the boss.
Yeah, she is.
And the first edit on everything Alan does.
That's right.
So Alan Lee, thanks for coming on. Check out his book, Sandstorm, Ashes to Ashes. And if you're a member of the Soulmates, you can catch Alan in our next bonus episode where he shares his wisdom and even a little time with Shawn. So until then, until next week, have a great Thanksgiving. Maybe I'll see you Wednesday night. Send me an email, mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. And Cyrus, you can take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Needs an ending.